The global awakening begins, ladies and gentlemen. Something extraordinary is happening. The world is watching in disbelief as UPI, a system built for India, takes center stage. The United States, the very birthplace of the credit card, is now looking at this homegrown, open, source marvel and asking, wait, how did we miss this? Disruption through innovation isn't just about creating something new. It's about forging something so incredibly effective, efficient, and undeniable that it compels the world to sit up, pay attention, and rethink everything it once believed. And that's precisely what we're going to do. We're going to force the world to pay attention and rethink everything it once believed. What is UPI? And why it matters globally? How could anything be more different, more powerful than UPI? The Unified Payments Interface, born not out of luxury, but out of absolute necessity. It emerged as a solution for a country with over 1 billion people, many of whom had never even used traditional banking systems. In doing so, it didn't just offer convenience. It completely disrupted the entire financial narrative. While major economies were still bogged down by plastic cards, transaction fees, and sluggish payment systems, UPI introduced an idea so simple yet so powerful: real-time, frictionless, zero-cost transactions directly between individuals and businesses. And it's accessible to anyone, even with a basic phone and internet connection. What makes this innovation truly disruptive is how it quietly bypassed the expected channels of change. It didn't rely on private corporations or foreign technology giants. It wasn't born in Silicon Valley or on Wall Street. Instead, it sprang from a public sector vision rooted deeply in inclusion, accessibility, and national infrastructure. The brilliance of UPI lies in its invisibility. People don't need to understand the complex technology behind it. They just tap, scan, and go. It simply works. It's reliable, and it has transformed the daily lives of millions in India, from street vendors and rickshaw drivers to online shoppers and multinational businesses. In the process, UPI didn't just improve India's economy. It set a new global benchmark. It highlighted how a digital-first approach could leapfrog generations of financial bureaucracy and deliver empowerment at an unprecedented scale. For the first time, the idea that a developing country could lead the world in fintech wasn't theoretical. It became a tangible reality. As countries like the United States, which once dominated the financial innovation space, watch in disbelief, it's abundantly clear. Disruption doesn't ask for permission. It happens when a system that works for the few is challenged by a system that truly works for the many. Innovation becomes disruption when it forces the world to catch up. And UPI is doing just that. Banks across the globe are rethinking their entire payment rails. Governments are reevaluating how to serve their unbanked populations. Tech giants are now closely watching what once seemed like a local experiment become a global case study. That's the true power of disruption. It doesn't need to knock loudly. It only needs to work better, faster, and more humanely than what came before. Why the US is unsettled by India's financial revolution. The empowerment of ordinary people through UPI is not merely a technological advancement. It's a profound social transformation. For decades, Financial systems around the world have been built in ways that, whether unintentionally or deliberately, excluded those without wealth, formal education, or access to established banking infrastructure. But UPI changed all of that. It created a level playing field where every citizen, regardless of their background, could participate in the economy with dignity and ease. Suddenly, a vegetable vendor in a remote town, a rickshaw driver in a busy city, or a student in a village hostel had the same power to send and receive money as a corporate executive, no longer dependent on middlemen, cash, or complex procedures. Ordinary people gained direct access to digital finance on their own terms. The sheer brilliance of UPI lies in its simplicity. It doesn't demand high-end smartphones, lengthy paperwork, or expensive service charges. All it requires is a mobile phone, a bank account, and an internet connection. The process is remarkably intuitive. Scan a QR code, tap a few buttons, and the transaction is done. This incredible ease of use made digital literacy not a prerequisite, but a byproduct. As more people used it, they learned by doing. This natural empowerment, without the need for classrooms or seminars, redefined what accessibility truly means. For the first time, millions who were previously invisible to the digital economy became active contributors and beneficiaries. This empowerment also fostered a deep sense of confidence and independence. When individuals no longer had to stand in long queues, wait for approvals, or rely on others to handle their money, they began to trust themselves more. Small businesses could grow without needing physical infrastructure. Workers could receive their salaries instantly, without delay or deductions. Parents could send money to their children across the country in real time. These aren't just conveniences. They are fundamental freedoms. They shift the balance of power, placing it firmly into the hands of the people who make the economy move every single day. A shift in power. Tech as the new weapon, moreover, the psychological shift was profound. People began to feel seen, capable, and connected. The barriers that had once made financial participation feel utterly out of reach were broken down. And this empowerment wasn't limited to cities or the educated elite. It reached the farthest corners of the country, touching lives that had never before been considered part of the formal financial world. It showed that progress isn't just about GDP or stock market numbers. It's about whether the system truly works for everyone, especially those who have been left behind. Global shock and awe erupted, not because a war was fought or a crisis unfolded, but because a new idea quietly began rewriting the rules of finance. India's unified payments interface was never just a technical advancement. It became a resounding wake-up call to the world. For years, Western economies, particularly the United States, viewed themselves as the undeniable pioneers of innovation in banking and financial technology. Credit cards, digital wallets, and large payment processors shaped the landscape. With their fees, delays, and institutional control accepted as the norm. But then came UPI, a system so simple, so seamless, and so powerful that it shattered these assumptions and left many global observers stunned. What caught the world off guard was not just UPI functionality, but its sheer reach and accessibility. In just a few years, It connected hundreds of millions of people in India, enabling real-time transactions without any fees. The global reaction was a powerful mix of admiration and disbelief. How could a country that had once been labeled as a developing economy leapfrog so far ahead in something as complex as digital payments? How did a government-led initiative outpace private sector giants backed by billions of dollars? This was not expected. It wasn't predicted by analysts, economists, or think tanks. And that unpredictability is what made it so incredibly powerful. Governments, banks, and fintech companies around the world began asking difficult questions. If India could build an open-source, real-time payment system at this scale, then why were their own systems still charging high transaction fees, requiring 3-day settlements, or struggling with interoperability? The shock wasn't just about the technology itself. It was about what it symbolized. UPI became undeniable proof that innovation is no longer the sole domain of the West. It revealed a new global order, one where leadership could come from anywhere, driven not by dominance, but by ingenious design and visionary thinking. Empowering 4 billion people at their fingertips, the surprise also extended deep into the tech industry. Silicon Valley, once seen as the undeniable epicenter of all things disruptive, suddenly found itself diligently studying, and in some cases, desperately trying to replicate elements of UPI. The sheer volume of UPI transactions, billions per month, dwarfed most existing systems. Its ability to effortlessly handle microtransactions, provide rural access, and demonstrate remarkable scalability without crashing or clogging the system raised eyebrows everywhere. UPI didn't just enter the conversation. It forcefully pushed its way to the very front, prompting even established players to fundamentally rethink their strategies. It redefined what efficiency, inclusiveness, and scale truly looked like. This wasn't just India's moment. It was a pivotal moment for the entire world to reassess what was possible, and more importantly, who was now setting the pace. For the longest time, global innovation was a story written by the few, by countries with long-standing infrastructure, massive capital, and global influence. The world had become accustomed to looking toward the same centers of power for new ideas. From villages to Silicon Valley, India's global impact, but then, something truly unexpected happened. The underdog stepped forward. UPI emerged from India, not as an imitation of the West's financial systems, but as a completely new framework, designed from the ground up for the people who had been left behind. It didn't try to follow the old models. It set out to solve a uniquely local challenge with a vision that eventually became global in its profound impact. And that's when the world truly began to pay attention. Because true leadership doesn't always roar. It often starts as a whisper that simply refuses to be silenced. India had long been viewed through the narrow lens of its challenges: poverty, inequality, and population. It's easy to get caught up in the challenges of a developing nation. The immense population, the complex issues of poverty, the constant pressure, and the monumental task of developing infrastructure. Yet, it was precisely within this demanding landscape that UPI was born. It emerged as a bold and necessary response to the urgent need for inclusivity, digital empowerment, and a cashless economy, one that genuinely uplifted the common person, rather than leaving them behind. UPI, built for everyone, the sheer brilliance of UPI lies in its foundational principle. It wasn't designed for the elite. It was built for everyone, from the bustling street vendor to the curious student, from the hardworking farmer to the savvy urban professional. UPI became the vital bridge connecting aspiration with access. It transformed the everyday smartphone into a bank, the simple QR code into a gateway, and trust itself into the new currency of exchange. What makes this story truly remarkable is that this profound transformation didn't originate from corporate monopolies or foreign investors. It was meticulously crafted by public institutions, driven by an unwavering commitment to the national good. This wasn't merely a financial reform. It was a powerful declaration. It showed that India, a nation often underestimated, could not only lead the world in something truly meaningful, but also did lead it. The scale, reliability, and inclusivity of UPI quickly outpaced legacy systems that had been entrenched for decades in even more economically advanced nations. While others were still grappling with bureaucratic red tape and restrictive gatekeeping, UPI had already reached the last mile, empowering citizens at every level. This shift wasn't just technological, it was deeply psychological. The underdog didn't just catch up, it raced ahead with astonishing clarity and confidence. In doing so, it shattered the pervasive myth that innovation is a luxury reserved only for the powerful. UPI served as a powerful reminder to the world that hunger, necessity, and resilience are often the greatest accelerators of change. It unequivocally proved that when a nation refuses to accept limitations and instead chooses to rewrite its own narrative, the world has no choice but to watch, to learn, and eventually to follow. Breaking the monopoly of Western banking, breaking the perceived monopoly of progress, means dismantling the long-held belief that innovation, advancement, and leadership can only originate from a select few privileged nations or institutions. For far too long, the global narrative has been dominated by the same voices, the same countries, companies, and ideologies, dictating what's possible and who gets to shape the future. But progress is not an exclusive product of the West, nor is it solely reserved for the wealthy or the technologically advanced. True progress is born from necessity, fueled by vision, and propelled by the sheer courage to challenge the status quo. The rise of UPI stands as a powerful testament to this truth. It wasn't Silicon Valley or Wall Street that conceived and built the most inclusive and scalable digital payment system in the world. It was India, a country once reductively labeled as a technological follower, has decisively become a leader, not by mimicking outdated models, but by forging an entirely new path. This profound shift represents something far grander than just a payment system. It signifies a redistribution of power in the world of ideas. When a developing nation creates a system that not only outperforms but also outscales what the most powerful economies have painstakingly built, it irrefutably proves that genius, creativity, and practical solutions are not the exclusive domain of the rich. The world is now being compelled to acknowledge that progress can indeed come from any direction. The arrogance that once dismissed innovation from the global south is rapidly crumbling in the face of undeniable results. UPI has achieved more than just streamlining transactions. It has made a resounding statement. A country with vision, willpower, and clarity can lead, even without the traditional markers of power. The rise of financial democracy, this disruption extends far beyond finance. It fundamentally challenges how the world perceives competence, leadership, and potential. It demonstrates that if the structures of progress have historically been gate-kept, then those gates are no longer locked. The digital world is actively being democratized, not through invitation, but through genuine transformation. UPI has ushered in a new chapter where open source, publicly focused innovation doesn't just compete with private enterprise. It consistently surpasses it. This reality is deeply unsettling to the old world order, primarily because it signals that their long-held dominance is no longer guaranteed. The monopoly on progress is being decisively broken, not through protest or politics, but through irrefutable results, through a solution that works so remarkably well it simply cannot be ignored. The antiquated idea that only certain nations hold the keys to the future is rapidly dissolving. The playing field is shifting dramatically. The rules are being rewritten, and with each QR code scanned, with each rupee transferred in real time, the illusion of exclusive control over progress fades further into history. UPI, India's silent weapon against economic dependency. The rise of UPI is more than just a compelling case study in digital success. It is a powerful call to action for the next generation. It challenges young minds everywhere to fundamentally rethink what leadership, innovation, and impact truly mean. UPI wasn't conceived in the boardrooms of billion-dollar corporations. It didn't emerge from countries traditionally seen as the centers of progress. It sprang from a place where the stakes were real, where the problems weren't theoretical, and where solutions had to genuinely serve not just the elite, but everyone. And that singular truth should ignite a fierce fire in every young dreamer, every aspiring coder, every budding policymaker, and every courageous entrepreneur watching from the sidelines. Because what UPI represents is a simple, yet profound truth. You don't have to come from power to build something powerful. The next generation stands at a historic crossroads. Technology is more accessible than ever before. The world is interconnected like never before, and barriers that once seemed insurmountable are being broken down every single day. If UPI could be built to seamlessly connect 1 billion people and still operate faster, cheaper, and more inclusively than most systems in the world, then what truly is stopping the youth from building something even bigger? This is not the time to wait for external validation, to ask for permission, or to simply follow what has already been done. It is the time to observe keenly, to understand deeply, and then to disrupt courageously. Look closely at your community. Identify what's broken, what's missing, and what people have simply accepted as unchangeable. Because hidden within those everyday problems are the very seeds of revolutionary ideas. UPI shook the global financial ecosystem by brilliantly answering a problem too many had deliberately ignored. That same clarity, that same burning hunger to serve the underserved, lives inside every visionary who dares to look past limitations. The future will not be written by those who merely imitate what already exists. It will be shaped by those who firmly believe that new answers must come from new places. Final words. The new kings don't wear crowns. There is a powerful generation rising. A generation that doesn't accept old excuses. A generation that is more connected to reality, more empathetic, more technologically fluent, and more fearless than any before it. The question is not whether you are capable of building something extraordinary. The real question is whether you are willing to begin. Are you ready to fail fast, learn quickly, and keep going, even when no one is watching? Because that's precisely what UPI did. It wasn't built in the spotlight. It was built with a singular, unwavering purpose. So, what is your purpose? What are you willing to create? Not for applause, but for genuine impact. The world doesn't just need more apps or gadgets. It desperately needs visionaries, builders, and dreamers who are also doers. The era of waiting is over. The next revolution is waiting to be born through your hands.